it feels like that a long time ago an agreement was made, sort of in the deep water community, that the position Gunner holds, sort of in combat, is one of just hyper generalized, and that there was sort of also this sort of mutual agreement upon what his weapons should represent, where your primary is sort of a hybrid that leans more towards AoE, and your secondary acts almost exclusively as a sidearm that can deal fairly high single target damage when needed. It feels like it's been this way for a while, with the combination of people also trying to push him off in very strange directions. You consider things like the Inferno build, or, with the recent additions, people trying to make use out of overclocks like Phantom Burster missiles, Mine Layer System, or Reatomizer, and the Mole, and there's validity in all of those. But I feel like ever since that initial agreement upon what Gunner does was made, and as well as ever since the third generation of weapons started being added, that's the Hurricane and the Coil Gun in this instance, it feels like Gunner's almost... It feels like people haven't tried to make a really generalist build that uses those third generation weapons. And that's sort of what this is, what I'm showing you today. What it also is in my opinion, the most efficient secondary build for Gunner that you can possibly imagine. The perfect embodiment of it being able to do everything you need, but also being the most efficient crowd clearing weapon possibly in the game. So let's get into it, what this build is, and I think we have to start with the coil gun. So the coil gun is, in my opinion, honestly, I think there's another sort of mutual agreement that Ghost Ship Games actually did quite a good job on the third generation of weapons, specifically on the secondaries, because I think to a lot of people, maybe the Smart Rifle or the Hurricane falls short in some ways. I feel like there are a lot of people who feel that way about possibly the Sludge Pump and the Drac as well, but there seems to be a more of a generalised agreement that the secondaries, while they are a bit more experimental, there's much more generalised positivity towards them. I still think they're all underrated in certain ways, and I think the Shard Factor is actually slightly overrated as well. But the coil gun is definitely underrated, and this build specifically is underrated. This wasn't born out of me wanting to find the most efficient build for it possible. It was born out of me wanting to do what people do with that triple tech chambers build without using triple tech chambers. So I settled on ultramagnetic coils. And so it was only upon using it I discovered how potentially disgustingly overpowered it actually is. But what makes this happen? So ultramagnetic coils is a clean overclock. It's really the coil gun's only traditional overclock. Well, not true. We have battery feeding module. Those two sort of represent that, and they're also the only two that really work for this build. But ultramagnetic coils is where it's at. It increases the trail duration and bigger trail radius. Now, in my opinion, the duration is really the most important part of this, but I think both are equally important, realistically. Because the longer trail duration means more damage in total from the trail. But especially if we're using electric trail, that slows enemies down as well, which means they're less likely to actually be able to escape the trail. And having a wider trail adds onto that even further. So we're increasing the time that the trail is in existence, but we're also effectively increasing the time that enemies spend in the trail, which increases the overall damage done. And you consider that the coil gun has infinite enemy penetration and leaves behind this trail. And when you think about how many enemies that you could potentially affect with it, you realise how much damage you can potentially do. From the trail alone, I've actually run some calculations, and I found that if you average about 4 enemies per, caught in the trail per shot, you actually net around 54,000 damage in total, which is a lot, by the way. I don't know if you actually understand how much that is. Take Neurotoxin, for example. A well-optimised Neurotoxin payload build for the Thunderhead will net about double this. But that's across all of its damage. The direct area, the kinetic area damage it deals as well as the direct damage, on top of affecting multiple enemies with the Neurotoxin every time that it is inflicted. This is a lot more guaranteed. We also have the direct damage. You have something that has an incredible efficient amount of AoE that it can deal. to a vast range of numbers of enemies. You can potentially only hit one enemy, but because of the way it's in a line, you can hit so many more. It's also a pocket. It's also a pistol, a heavy-duty pistol that, if you want, can one-shot a Triage or an Acid Spitter. It's a level of utility that really shouldn't be undervalued. Of course, if you choose to do something like that, you are going to be using more ammo. But that's the point. You have so much ammo, and actually, oh no, the calculations I made were correct because you have an inherent. You start with 40 extra than the max ammo. I calculate it as if you have 960 ammo, which you do, because like I said, you start with the inherent 40. It's like your magazine size. How you start with your magazine size on top of your max ammo. And the point here is just giving you as much ammo to play with that you can use it as an incredibly effective tool for dealing with massive groups of enemies. You also use the fear to turn around enemies, turn away enemies to get them away from you, but also turn around enemies like Praetorians, so you can shoot them in the back, kill them much quicker by shooting their weak point. In tier 4, we take the shockwave because this is, well, actually, I should probably explain the most important part of all this. Yes, the ammo is important, but these two together is what creates that massive ammo pool. Controlled magnetic flow, which allows you to fire just after holding the trigger for a very short amount of time. You fire a weaker shot, a weaker in terms of direct damage shot, that uses 10 ammo. You can use 10 ammo, 20 ammo, I think you can also do 30 as well, and you can also do the standard 40 ammo shot. But just using 10 ammo to get the full strength of the trail is where the efficiency really comes in. And I've noticed it is somewhat hard for me to explain. I hope some of the maths I helped demonstrate that, but of course I will be physically demonstrating it just in a moment. So you combine these two to get that massive ammo pool. Everything else is just designed to increase the efficiency. Fear trajectory, there's a small argument for this being somewhat counterintuitive, but I'd say when you combine it with electric trail, the enemies stay in the trail long enough to do the most damage that you need, and fear is just so good at keeping you alive as well. It's so good at keeping you alive, and it's really good at turning around enemies that need to be turned around, or interrupting enemies, like Trijaws, anything that's about to let out a powerful attack, and obviously turning around Praetorians to make them easier targets. And I speak from experience in that this is it's essentially the Swiss Army knife of weapons, without actually being too hard to get your head around. Something like the Wave Cooker or the Bolt Shark, which arguably come with a lot more complicated mechanics. This is a very simple yet universally usable weapon. It is somewhat slow, however. We're not increasing our reload speed, which means you need to reload in between every single shot. Also, not using triple tech chambers just means we don't get the 2 extra potential shots before reloading. And there are reasons that you could take any of these other overclocks. If you don't have any overclocks, this build should work okay. If you have backfeeding module, use that. Any clean would work as well. Well, Reatomizer would be fine. Mole would be okay. Hellfire changes this a lot. Hellfire is good, by the way. Hellfire is an incredibly obviously useful, high power, vicious AoE that is much larger than what we get with ultramagnetic coils, and deals with enemies a lot more quickly, and it's also arguably a lot more satisfying to use. Its use cases are lower though. It's far less effective because you have so little ammo and you can't use controlled magnetic flow to make your ammo go further, which makes it much worse in terms of proficiency, and also much worse against things that its status effect can't necessarily affect. Yes, you can't electrocute most bosses or oppressors, but you still have 960 potential shots with which to deal extra damage to them with. In the case of Hellfire, you have it's 760 divided by 40, or 76 divided by 40. That might not be correct. Either way, I can't do the math on the spot. Just trust me. Hellfire is far less efficient. Hellfire is good at insta-killing rival turrets, and it's good. It's just nowhere near as efficient as what we're talking about. Obviously, an important part of any kit is your primary weapon. In this case, I've gone for the Hurricane, but this is basically how this build works. The coil gun is sort of its leg, or its 2 legs. You don't need a third leg to stand up, but you have it anyway, so you might as well use it. That's your primary weapon. It's the third leg that you don't necessarily need, but it's there, so you might as well use it. The coil gun is your 2 legs, though. It needs to be this way for it to make this build work, in my opinion. I think there's a certain amount of rigidity in the primaries here. Where it's flexible is that you can use any one of them. So you could use a minigun, you could use a Thunderhead, you could use the Hurricane, but I believe that these are the best builds for this build. Builds that give you very good single target damage, but don't sacrifice or don't completely lack AoE. There's an argument here for every single one of these. Thunderhead, we use Big Bertha. This is sort of objectively the strongest, but it has the caveat of its low starting rate of fire, its low total rate of fire, and its lower accuracy. Minigun obviously has low starting accuracy, and it's arguably has the weakest overall damage and also least overall AoE effectiveness. The Hurricane has a problem of not being as good against armored targets, but it starts with perfect accuracy. It has the highest weak point multiplier, and it has certain interesting breakpoints like being able to one-shot a grunt to the face or anything. Literally anything weaker than a guard, you can one-shot to the face. So that includes slashers and acid spitters. But it has pretty weird breakpoints when you just shoot things normally. If you shoot grunts in the body, it's arguably just as effective as the Thunderhead is in this case. And you also have a lot less ammo to play with. I've just personally found the greatest success with the Hurricane in this context. And I think that's why I'm going to be showing off exclusively. I could show off the other two. I'm going to show you them like in the terminal just for a moment and sort of soak it in. I think in this case, it would be nice if you could have more rate of fire on the Thunderhead. And you could, but you'd be sacrificing a fair amount of damage for that. And it's really up to you whether or not that's worth it. Minigun, I'd argue, have a bit of flexibility too. You could use Lead Storm. You really don't want your damage to go lower though. A little more oomph is a good overclock, but not for this. You need that higher single target damage. But I just don't like Lead Storm enough. But Hurricane, if you want to use Hurricane, this is the way to build it for this. And in my opinion, the only gap in this build's armor that is left is it's really just a few select enemies. It's Mactera Brundles and Kuronar Shellbacks. Now, the Brundles are a big problem because you can easily scare them off and deal a good amount of damage over time with the coil gun. If you want to just hammer them hard, you can get through that armor fairly easily, but they still feel a lot more tanky than the rest. Shellback is a bit different. It can't be electrocuted, or at least nowhere near as easily, and its weak points are much harder to hit as well. This is where your pickaxe power attacking comes in, though. It is part of your build, don't ignore it. These are sort of the two things that you want it for the most, though. These sort of armoured enemies where their weak points are inherently covered up by armour. Unlike a Praetorian where you could shoot it in the face when its weak point is on its back is always exposed. Yeah, you can just hit them hard if you want. It does work, but this is where your power attack comes in, which is why it's Serrated Edge. This allows you to do a massive amount of chunk damage to oppressors, as well as easily strip Brundles and Shellbacks of all their armor. I think in some cases it can even one-shot a Brundle. So that's really what your power attack is for in this build. Shield and Zipline Launcher, I'd argue, is preference, although once again this is based on experience, and this is sort of the configurations I've had the greatest success with. I've never felt like my Zipline Launcher is inadequate, built like this. Shield, a little bit different. It's really just what you need. If you prefer to, for example, have a shield that's always big enough to have Doretta inside it, you can do that if you want. I'm just a big fan of duration. This build is really about the weapons. So much so that your grenade is also not particularly relevant. The only thing I would recommend is not using incendiary grenades. And even though I love incendiary grenades, I think in a lot of ways they're actually the best. The reason I advise against it is because this build is about being able to deal with everything that you encounter with every individual bit of your kit. Everything is effective against everything. Obviously, incendiary grenade is ineffective against a lot of the newer enemies we've had, like the Rock Box. Oh, well, not the new enemies. The most recent, the Rock Box, and obviously most bosses are unaffected by fire as well. The Lead Burster I found to be the most universally effective because it just deals a good amount of damage. It's very dangerous to you, yes, but there's nothing that can really resist it particularly. And that's really because it can hit airborne enemies so easily as well, unlike the cluster or the sticky grenade. So that's where that comes in. Armor rig, not particularly important. I believe my choices are relatively the best though. I think the long invulnerability after being revived is, it's generally agreed upon as the best. You don't have a choice here. You do have a choice here, in my opinion. You take whichever one you think's better for you. I think it's pretty. I don't know. I don't actually have an opinion on this. Tier 1, just don't take bigger mineral bag. Benefits to your shield regeneration are always going to be worth sacrificing that little bit of extra convenience. Depositing minerals. It's like, I don't think it's a difficult choice. Perks. So I've got my standard for solo, which is dash and heightened senses. Dash will never change. I think in Gunner, dash is especially valuable. Born Ready is incredibly important here. It's arguably the most important perk for Gunner and for this build. Both of these need to be reloaded. None of their reload times are particularly long, but especially in the context of the coil gun, you're going to be reloading a lot. And you're going to value Born Ready a lot. Resupplier, this is absolutely up to you. You could take Resupplier, you could take Sweet Tooth, you could even take Vampire. This is the one build where I don't use Vampire, by the way, because I just believe it's that good. And it is that good. Veteran Depositor might make me seem a bit of a hypocrite for not taking bigger mineral bag, but I just have a weird affinity for Veteran Depositor. For giving you that damage resistance, for making depositing quicker so you don't have to spend as much time doing that. It's just a fantastic perk. Born Ready is the one that's specific to this build though. The other two are kind of your choice. So that's the build. Let's show it off. So in these videos, I want to give the best sort of range of experiences that suit weapon. Obviously, that suit the build, I should say. Obviously, in this case, it's supposed to be good against everything. So I need to make very specific choices about what best shows off everything. The ideal: one normal mission, one elimination. So an elimination and just another mission. One of them would have rival presence. The other one would have Lithophage outbreak. That's the ideal for showing off this build. So currently, I have a normal short mining expedition with rival presence. I don't think there's anything here that's... See, actually, that's kind of annoying. That's very annoying because that's perfect. And I know I won't get back in time. Unless I'm very, very quick. I'm just going to start the mission. Anyway, how is everyone? I should note, this is sort of my go-to build when I've just sort of like just had enough and I just want to win. But I also do find it to be quite a bit of fun. Far from unsatisfying. Although you could be the judge of that. Also, because you have so much ammo to play with, using it on things like loot bugs, not a problem. So if anyone hasn't used the coil gun before, controlled magnetic flow is something that you really need to understand, in that you can charge it up all the way, but you can also fire when it's on just, you've got 3 little spokes in the crosshair, and also the full circle. You can fire at the first little section once that's red, and that's what you want to be doing most of the time. If you want to do more damage, you can charge it all the way. I would only recommend using either the smallest charge or the biggest charge. Biggest charge to take out things that need to be dealt with quickly, like a Trijaw or an Acid Spitter. and the small charge will be for everything else, including turning Praetorians around. You don't need to be dealing a lot of damage to that Praetorian with the coil gun. That's what the Hurricane's for. Right, here come the robots. So this is where the Hurricane jet fuel homebrew being a weak point overclock really comes in. Because it's not even, it really isn't that fast if you don't hit weak points, but the amount of damage that you do when you hit weak points is it's worth it, in my opinion.
Guys, did you see? I hacked it.
Also, if there's any builds that people would like me to try, absolutely tell me them. And I will at some point, I'm sure. This lot, that will do most of them easily. And this Praetorian has already been feared, but I'm going to fear him again. Oh, actually, hold on. Go away. Easy.
Need to get my pickaxe sharpened when we get back. Deep Rock seriously need to invest in some better equipment.
What the chance of me actually getting back in time for that mission? Slim. And I don't want to speedrun because I want to show off the build properly. So that puts me in a bit of a predicament. Although I should definitely move on from this starting room. Oh, you better not. So the question of how important really is a secondary objective when you don't really need anything, when you're maximum level. Especially when you're trying to do something like this, record a video. And apparently, okay. But out of sheer compulsion, I think we're gonna have to do it anyway. I am also recording a fair bit later than I would have liked to. Owed to my pretty piss poor sleep schedule. Which is born out of me having confidence in my ability to wake up. And what I mean by that is, if I have to get up for something, it's never an issue. Something official, like going to university, right? Unfortunately, my brain doesn't treat YouTube as officially, which means it's much harder for me to just get up, even though I do have something to do. Anyway, here's a shell back. See how much damage he did with that power attack? Anyway, should be looking forward to Saturday because we're actually doing another tier list. So we've sort of agreed that a lot of our opinions are outdated from those original tier lists. The ones that we did early on in the channel, actually we did before it was called Barrel Vision. And I don't know if our opinions are outdated, more than they've just changed. One thing that is outdated, though, is the primary weapons, because of certain changes that have been made. I think the primary weapons tier list predates the changes to the sludge pump, and obviously predates the overhaul to the GK2. So that's going to be factored in. I know the GK2 is going to end up in a different slot, position on the tier list. So we are doing a primary weapons tier list this Saturday. At first, my idea was to, we should probably do the first tier list that we did, redo that, which is passive perks. Tyler had a better idea, which was to wait until we get confirmation, because we're pretty firm believers that this year we're going to get new perks and new overclocks. We're not exactly sure in what order, but we think that those are going to be the main equipment addition for the seasons this year, assuming we get at least 2, which we should. It's just a question of which one comes first. Either way, he wants to wait until we have confirmation that we're getting perks, until we cover them again. We can sort of pinpoint the ones that really need the most attention when it comes to perk balance, which I 100% agree with. But either way, primary weapons tier list on Saturday. Most likely going to follow up the next Saturday with secondary weapons. I'm not sure. Also, I want to thank everyone again for how well that last video did. What was it? The Dev Q&A review for December. I think it's probably at around 700 views now. It's easily the best performing out of those videos, and it's the best performing official video we've had since, well, actually, in a very, very long time. Aside from the new stuff, nothing's got that many views since, I think, since Tyler's Rilla video, which was like before any of our current formatting was fully in place, which is kind of nuts. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Also, thanks for getting us to 350 subscribers. It's just a cool number to see. I hope we grow more, but it's really nice. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who comments, especially, because it's nice. We get such nice comments. It's kind of weird considering how cynical we can be. Although someone did take note of that on the last podcast, which is absolutely fair, by the way. That one was especially downbeat.
Wait, what is the difference between rock and stone? I need the mule right here, right now.
Also, there should be a marked improvement in the video quality this time compared to the last video. Oh, that's how you do it. Right, that gold's not particularly important. I was about to ask where the Uber nuts have been, until I realised I've already got 8 of them.
Molly, over here.
Also, it's going to be pretty hard for Tyler to deny, once we do get new overclocked for all the current weapons in the game, for us to do individual weapon overclock tier lists, which is something I've wanted to do forever. But seeing as we might actually be quite close, and by close, the proximity is like within the year, but it could be any time this year, of getting new overclocks, I think it's a better time. It will be a better time than ever after those come out to rank all the new overclocks, and I really hope we get those new overclocks sometime soon. And I do hope it's a good selection. The truth is, when Ghost Ship chooses to do something, they do it well. The my issues come entirely down to decision making and frequency. Frequency is something that can't particularly be helped. You know, the size of their team is the size of their team. Their output is their output. But the things that the game needs the most could come out quicker if their decision making was more on point with what they choose to prioritize. So I think it's a cycle that can be corrected, potentially. But I will never not credit them on the fact that the stuff that they choose to work on, they always do a fantastic job on. Even if the decision making about what it should be, or decision making about what they're working on in the first place, isn't quite in the right lane, or at least what we think is the right lane. So if they do new overclocks, which they seem pretty dead set on doing at some point, actually they said it will definitely happen at some point, then I'm sure they'll do a fantastic job. I'm really excited for those overclocks, just to have a whole host of new overclocks to play with, which will just create dozens upon dozens of new builds and just configurations just to play with and figure out, because you know those new overclocks will all be fairly interesting. I would be very confused to see a lot of cleans. I think for the sake of just fleshing out the overclock grind, having there be a much more thorough selection, and also just in the vein of logic, there should be a lot more cleans that cover some of the basic stats that aren't covered by overclocks on certain weapons. Like a clean that covers ammo and direct damage on the Hurricane. That's something that doesn't exist, but we'd like to see that on top of all the crazy ideas that they would come up with. Also, more overclocks means more videos. Me and Snowing Fate. And I do think there's a weird sort of undervaluing of the power of news and planning in both on Ghoshit's part and on the community's part. I feel like there should be a lot more desire to see what's coming next. Season 2's been out for over 2 months now. We're almost 2 weeks into the new year. I think it's fair to expect some word on what's up next. Also, I think I might have said Season 2 instead of Season 3. Season 3's been around for 2 months now. Over 2 months. Not that we should get a look at what's coming next, but I feel like they should have that planned already. And they should be able to share those plans. To get speculating, to get us brainstorming ideas for them. This is what I mean about jet fuel homebrew on the Hurricane, sort of having weird breakpoints when it comes to grunts especially. I think Big Bertha can do a grunt in 3 direct hits. But the point is that jet fuel homebrew can do it in 1 hit if you hit it in the face. Unfortunately, it's the same number. You don't. And Big Bertha has almost double the ammo that jet fuel homebrew does. So when it comes to the primaries, like I said, it really is a preference. Although I do believe the builds I offered on those primaries are somewhat necessary for them to be as good as they can be for this build. So I'm doing a terrible job against these shredders. Sorry. Embarrassing, frankly. Also, that sniper can see me. That should kill it. Might actually hit me. No matter. Up he goes. I need to get down there. I now regret coming down here. That was pretty cool, using the repulsor shields, repulsor turret shields to block sniper turret projectiles. I don't think I've ever done that deliberately. Until just now.
Come here. That's what you get for being territorial. Weapon ready.
I should know, if there's anyone who hates escort duties or industrial sabotages, this build is good for those as well, so don't worry. This is a viable replacement for your go-to build for those. Maybe you don't have a go-to build, that's why you hate them so much.
Gotta wait for the recharge. For Carl! To the scrap heap with you. Reloaded. Shield up.
The swarm's heading your way. Load up.
That was almost very embarrassing, but it ended up being very cool, and now it's a swarm coming, and I'm fine on ammo, but I will call on the resupply,
Hang in there.
in case any of you are starting to worry.
Swarm, they're here.
It's actually a bit hard to pick what to shoot first.
The time is up, Craig. Lock and loaded. Dread this.
Whoa! Oh, Jesus! I actually thought that line from my coil gun shot was zipline.
Shield plate.
Shield, shield. Don't want the ice to knock me out the shield.
Die, Wolfsack. Tactical lead burster.
That was a risky play, especially considering how easy it is to get killed, to get damaged by a lead burster, and how little health I had.
Scanner showed the waivers thinning out. Take out the rest of them. Snap.
Charge and ready. I'm not scared of you. Weapon ready. Getting some.
But I haven't gone down yet. You can give me that. Damn it, the heating's on. I can't be the only one who's not a fan of internal heating. I'll dress for how cold it is. Fine. I don't need to waste money on artificial heating. No, maybe I'm the same.
Horn ready.
I don't mind some of this. Some spoilers potentially for that tier list video we're going to do on Saturday. I might have some unpopular opinions.
I've got a zip line
like thinking the cryo cannon isn't particularly good. I don't know how strong a case I can really make for it, but I'm gonna be wanting to place the cryo cannon fairly low. I think below the flamethrower. I think what I place at the top as like the best weapon is unchanged.
Where is that?
I'm still fairly decided on that. Even if it's not my favourite weapon, you know, I'm not using it right now. I might make a case for the coil gun to be above where it is currently. I think, well, not currently. I mean, I think in our previous one, and obviously that will be in the secondary tier list, I put the coil gun in, we put it in A or B. I think it's S. So we'll get to that. Anyway, this mission is completed. Not over yet, but it's completed. I won't skip through the extraction because there could be good stuff to show throughout it. That will showcase the build well. And what I do find it satisfying, it is somewhat monotonous. You do relatively the same thing to everything, and it just kind of works. But that is the point. It was trying to find a way to do that.
Drop pod departing in T-minus 5 minutes.
Also, to have made a suggestion that you should be able to pick up maggots and toss them. A suggestion. I agree with it.
Go, go, go! Drop pod isn't waiting forever.
Drop pod departing in T-minus 4 minutes.
Eat it! Your history!
I really shouldn't have put that after spit to get me. That was poor play. Also, you know what's pretty cool? If a Nemesis showed up right about now. And I mean that. That would be awesome. I love Nemesis. I can really show off if a Nemesis comes along. The missions have just changed. You can see the time. It's just gone 4:30. I was almost on time.
Drop pod departing in T-minus 3 minutes.
Covering fire! Rock solid!
It might be a good idea for these videos if I strip Bosco. It's not necessarily fair to not have them with you at all, but I think the idea is that a Bosco no upgrade sort of represents maybe a Greenbeard teammate. Someone that you're going to have to carry, and I think every good build, a skilled player should be able to carry less skilled players with. I don't know if that had a twinge of arrogance to it. It might have done. It wasn't meant to. I don't really view myself that way. I'm not particularly good at carrying. I'm not a very good team player. I can admit that. That was our first mission. Showed off against a lot of bugs, a lot of robots. No oppressors or detonators though, or even wardens. There's actually some things missing in that mission, it felt. Barely any Mac Terror too, when I think about it. I don't know if that's because of the rivals taking up a lot of enemy slots. Could be. Anyway, let's see what we got here. Well, we got that. Lord. Which I'll admit is tempting. Though, I think it's going to have to be that. But that is Scout's habitat, so maybe I shouldn't try. mean, that is actually perfect, isn't it, if we're being honest? I might as well just accept it.
Ready. Time to leave.
Um, that can be our boss cut. But yeah, this is actually exactly what I need. I wouldn't have chosen to have an anomaly,
Pots of
but
gold loaded.
take what you can get. Obviously, would have rather have done a lift phage outbreak. Because this build isn't perfect against those. I think it's just as efficient, and as long as you hit the blisters with the hurricane, not a problem. But Undead and the minigun are definitely better against Rockbox than Hurricane, or at least Jet Fuel Homebrew Hurricane. Just point out, if I ever fail a mission in one of these videos, there should be community-wide action to stop me from playing the game. I'm kidding. But it'd still be very embarrassing. And I could see it happening in this mission.
Locate a glyphid nest. The
Honestly, low gravity makes Bacteria Plague worse.
to locate their cocoons, destroy both them and their inhabitants by any means necessary. Bring plenty of ammo. They can take a punch.
I think because especially if you don't, especially if you do what low gravity encourages you to do and jump a lot, you'll just be a more. Well, you're going to be in cover less, aren't you?
Move your tin ass over here and hurry, please.
Red sugar pocket, always nice.
Taste the pickaxe! Walking on thorns, not a good idea. Ready. I need the damn minecart on legs. Where is it?
Another thing that this coil gun build is fantastic against is tiny enemies, almost. Now I'm not going to wake them up on purpose, but
Just take
chances are they will be.
time, old lady.
And it's so good against them because the trail is deceptively wide. It's definitely wider than it looks.
Ooh, glad to finally deposit. Felt like I was carrying a dreadnought on my back. Need some free space.
Here they come.
Don't die easily. Pow! No survivors.
See, just it'll be a clever movement, just a few shots. You don't need the lead burster there, just a few shots of your coil gun does the trick. Oi, get off. Can't risk it.
Look up. Shield.
Yes, it was left on very low health, but I could tell Bodko wasn't going to get to it.
Nanosite breeder eliminated. Shield recharged. Weapon ready.
We've got a Trisolite deposit in here and a Dreadnought.
You're cute, but you're dead.
I'm gonna need some sugar.
Took out a loot box. I hear management's been trying to get a shipment of knee pads in. Fancy that.
It's pretty weird thing to know, but you can't clamber twice in one jump. Meaning that if you clamber, but your aerial movement continues because you're doing like a long jump, like you can in the gravity, you won't actually be able to clamber again, which is a very, very strange mechanic. Fuck off. Oh no.
I was born ready. Claire, not ready yet. Shield placed. Born ready.
How many Brundles? I mean, good lord.
These bugs don't stand a chance against us. Molly, over here.
You know, I'm hardly showing it off if it's not a challenge.
Really much better.
You know what? I'm just gonna fight that Dreadnought.
Whack-a-mole.
Good. It's my favourite one. I am still a stickler for the classic Dreadnought. He's my favourite. Also, showing yourself against Dreadnoughts. Right, so something you'll notice is that coil gun, yeah, it doesn't deal a great amount of damage, but overall, you have the trail, you have that little bit direct damage, and it's far more efficient to just do the small shots than big shots. It's slow, but it is efficient. And you can still use the primary as well on this stage. Obviously, you want it more for the exposed phase. But, you know, right now, Molly, please.
Be gone. I was born ready. Bamboo! Born ready. Lead burster.
That's probably the most effectively I've used Lead Burster against a normal Dreadnought. It's usually quite hard to make that happen. They're usually best against the Sentinels during the Hive Guard fight, or just they're pretty decent against the Twins in general. But normal Dreadnought or like Hive Guard exposed phase, not preferable, but that wasn't bad.
Get these lasers up and running.
The chances of a Mactera ambush coming around the corner is, well, probably about 100%. It will happen at some point, but not yet. Red trigger pocket. It is.
I needed that.
Perfecto. Doesn't seem to be Macteros, so...
This doesn't start it. Whack it with
Well, well.
Okay. Where is it then?
Sending in a nanite bomb dispenser for you, team. If those things can't penetrate it, nothing will.
Up there? That doesn't seem too bad. Oh, goodness me, get off. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do.
back to hell.
Thank God for veteran depositor.
I could do this in my sleep.
Good job, team. Core and fuser ready.
I know exactly what I want. I need the mule right here, right now. I just put on my zipline. Move your tin ass over here and hurry, please. Hate to wait for flare charging.
Covered a weird amount of ground.
Donkey time.
I don't know if that's something to do with low gravity.
Weapon ready.
Right, I think I just heard a Terra ambush spawn. Maybe just a normal ambush. No, these are Macteras.
Bloody hell, you're hot to kill.
Those aren't Macteras. What fellas?
Bam! I called for the mule. I was born ready. It's like she's bigger on the inside.
Like a TARDIS. Been watching a lot of Doctor Who. Thought I should make some small talk. Or I could just skip through this part, but you know. There could be enemies around every corner, such as that grabber.
Locked and loaded.
Anyway, I've been watching a lot of Doctor Who. Basically, my first sort of dedicated watch through of modern Doctor Who from series 1 all the way through to the end. Before I've sort of started, got into 10 and a bit, like season 3, so that's 10 and Martha, and then given up on that, and then just watched all of Smith and not bothered with Capaldi. For the first time, I saw Tennant's run through to the end, and I've actually got to Capaldi's, and I think Capaldi's actually pretty fantastic. Honestly, season 8, which is Capaldi's first season, might actually be my favourite season of the show. Which is nuts. Especially considering I don't think the music's anywhere near as good as it was during, like, honestly, I think that's what Smith had. I think he's probably my favourite actor still to play Doctor Who, and he also had easily the best music. I think those are the main things he had.
Donkey, come here. Eat it. Flares charging.
I genuinely forgot that would do that.
I ordered a resupply.
Now that is embarrassing.
Nitro's been withdrawn. A supply pod is inbound.
Take care of this.
Look, the low gravity even affects their projectiles. I'm not surprised, but still, neat.
Shield up. Red sugar.
It's honestly something I like about the twins, that staying still, even the shield, is the most dangerous thing to do. Arguably. Because they can burrow, and the Lacerator has his ground shockwave, rockwave, even. Honestly, I think that might have done more damage to me than to them. Okay. Perfect. That's how you meant to use a lead burst against the twins. Thunderbar.
I'm doing my part. Zip line ready. Molly, come here. Got no flares ready. Bag's full. Can't carry anymore. Step aside. Never mind. Bam! At least we don't have to haul all these minerals around ourselves. Can't move. Reloading.
Like I said, it's not quick, But it is efficient and it will keep you safe. It's really the coil gun's role here. Keep you safe literally by keeping them away from you and by killing them.
Molly! God damn it, there's a pebble in my boot. Claire's not ready yet.
After. He's spotted. Release my boy. Okay. That felt like they were dropping nitro there. That was weird. I mean, I know they weren't, obviously.
Boom, baby! Lock and loaded. Reloaded. Bam! Oh man, this ain't what I signed up for. Where is that damn tin can? I need to deposit in the mule. Sometimes I wonder if mining is all there is to life. Then I'm the deposit. Can't carry anymore. Just take your sweet time, old lady. I've got all day.
What can I say to make this less boring?
I've got a bad feeling about this, but not as bad as usual.
If that made anyone uncomfortable, then I apologise deeply. Never apologise. Doesn't work.
I have to make a deposit. Molly is on the way.
You know, actually, I will cut till something comes up. That's quick.
Damn players could need an upgrade.
Woo!
Bloody disgusting stuff this is. Ready to kill some more crepes. Yeah, give me some sugar.
Right, we're in the final dreadnought room.
Weapon ready. I need the damn minecart on legs. Where is it? I've sprung a leak. Help me mine this.
Like a pretty decent environment for fighting a dreadnought. Assuming, well, we know it's either going to be a hive guard or a normal dreadnought. So. Be good for twins as well, actually.
I called for Molly. Inventory is full. Time to deposit. Deep Rock seriously need to invest in some better equipment.
The thing is, there's a lot of bombers at the best of times. But people might have noticed this. Bombers are just a weirdly abundant enemy, but then it's like on Mac Plague, there's even more of them.
Nicely done, team.
Madness.
Yourself a nice bonus.
Real mules back in the day, keeping up the tradition.
But they're definitely more common than Brundles in normal missions.
I need the damn minecart on this. Where is it? I was born ready. Time to find Molly. Be gone.
Power attack just wildly.
Depositing. I can't carry anymore. Don't got room for more.
Do it. Normal Glizzy Dreadnought.
Just take your sweet time, old lady.
Stand back. Supply pod inbound.
Woo! Haven't done that in a while. How did he hit? Is that because I was below him, technically? That's pretty cool, actually.
Weapon ready.
Honestly, being able to jump over him like this is really deluding me. I'm going to think I can do that next time I do elimination.
Lock and loaded. Go, Crusher.
Another very effective lead burster.
I was born ready.
Die.
Out for now. Good work, team. Hit the return button on the mule when you're ready, and we will pick you up.
Right, we're done here.
Good work. Sending in the drop pod.
When the damn bugs start to feel like family,
You know it's time to quit.
feel much better now. Boing.
Boing. I just realised I don't really have a name for this. I think I actually called it, like, I might have called it the overcompensator.
Drop pod has arrived.
Because
Retrieving the mule.
you just have way too much gun ammo.
Drop pod departing in T-minus 5 minutes.
But either way, it's a gunner build that the best generalist gunner build you've ever seen. Basically, that's what it is. I think we got a pretty good breadth of mission types too. You know, given that we only did 2 missions. Oh.
Better hurry.
let my guard down now, I feel like we're done.
Bacteria droid eliminated. Born ready.
Drop pod departing in T-minus 4 minutes.
This is interesting to note. Yeah, one of them was Rival Presence, one of them was Terror Plague. I mean, Rival Presence is my favourite warning, but I did a poll earlier on the Reddit. I recommend people do this as well. There's some guy gathering information. One of the questions was what your favourite mission types are. You could pick 2 options, and I picked Mining Expedition and Elimination.
Extraction commencing. Good work.
Which are the missions that we did today. Those wires have incredible rigidity. Anyway, so that was the best Generalist Gunner build you've ever seen. Just to go through it all again, got Hurricane, Jet Fuel Homebrew, these mods. Coil gun, you know what, I'm actually going to try it with fire. Not on video, I'm just going to try it just for fun. Coil gun with ultramagnetic coils and it with these mods. Pickaxe like this. Flares. Shield generator, zipline launcher, mostly up to you, but I would recommend these configurations. Tactical lead burster is my highest recommendation. You can take realistically any, but for the purposes of the build, incendiary grenade is I would not recommend. Armor rig, mostly your choice, but I would recommend this. Perks, absolutely use Born Ready and Dash. The rest is mostly up to you. Or Veteran Depositor seems very useful. This. So yeah, I hope I did a good job at showcasing why this is such a good build. It's my personal favourite gunner build. I hope maybe I can convert some of you as well. But yeah, I mean, that was it. I don't need to make this go on any longer than it already has gone on for. I hope you enjoyed. I hope maybe you learned something about Gunner, something about the coil gun, how overpowered it is. And yeah, if you enjoyed, please make sure to rock and stone, and by rock and stone I do mean like and subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow. Obviously, last Wednesday I did the first episode of the How to Deep Rock series, where I'd start with a new character and I sort of explaining things I go through. I'm giving up on that in the sense it's going to be a much more casual stream instead. It doesn't seem to be worth doing as a proper series. I don't really have the energy to do it that way. I just want to do a playthrough as a fresh character, but in stream form that means Tyler's more likely to play alongside as well, and I can sort of do more multiplayer stuff as well. So look forward to that. Look forward to the podcast on Thursday and our tier list on Saturday. It'd be good. Hopefully we'll get some news this week. I'm sure we'll get some by the end of the month. Either way, like I said, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and see you next time. Bye bye.